Yes, so good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another section of Ask the Experts, HR and business sections. Today is a Saturday, and on Saturdays we try to bring coach who are in relation to and who are entrepreneurs who also run their businesses to come and talk to us. And this evening we have in our midst Fadila. So Fadila will tell us much about herself and will take us through the session. As usual, please mute yourself. If you are not talking, we have a chat. You can put your comment in the chat. If you want to ask any question, you can put in the chat. And as you know, this call is recorded. So right after the call, we'll share on YouTube for those who couldn't join the call. So at this moment, we hand over to Fadila. So Fadila, you are welcome.
Thank you so much for providing the platform, Leslie. I'd like to congratulate you on your journey so far, enabling access to employment and equal opportunities for young people in Africa. So it's my honor to be here with you all today. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So my name is Fadila Ahmad, and first thing first, I am human, just like you. And I'm also on a journey myself to developing my career, developing my business, and really creating the life that is of my dreams. So I am a strategic business consultant. I work specifically with organizations to help them grow and scale. And most recently, over the past year, I have also doubled as a remote work consultant, helping organizations as well as individuals who want to transition into remote work do so profitably, efficiently, and sustainably. I have a business in finance as well as in the media space, and I'm happy to be here with you all. And today, basically, we'll be talking about building a remote first or friendly business, how to scale your physical business into a profitable remote company in Africa. I believe that a number of us over the past couple of weeks, I would say, have really been forced, some people for the very first time in their careers, to be able to work remotely. Now, this was an emergency remote work response by companies all over the world in their attempt to ensure that they continue to be able to provide their service, they're able to work with their teams, even while we were amidst the pandemic. Now, how can companies in Africa, particularly because that's the market in which I operate, and I want to be able to empower more companies and individuals who have their own businesses, be able to create businesses that are sustainable, businesses that are proactive and not just reactive to the situations that are happening. A lot of people say that, oh, we're going to go back to business as usual. Business as usual was not working, not in every industry. A lot of business practices that we have been used to working on, or really focusing on, have not been serving us to the best of our abilities. So in the chat column below, before I go any further, I will want you to let us know in the chat column, have you worked remotely before? If you have, when did you work remotely? Was it due to COVID-19, or was that a regular part of your company's strategy for you to work remotely? Let us know quickly in the chat button below. I want to know something before I proceed with the conversation. Thank you. Let us know in the chat button below if you're a business owner, or you are an entrepreneur, or you are an aspiring entrepreneur. Have you worked remotely before? While we wait on that response, so I have about 2 responses here. Let me quickly see what your responses are. So I started working remotely due to COVID. No, I haven't worked remotely before. Okay, that's fine. You are in the right place. This particular presentation is for 3 categories of people. The first are business leaders, human resource managers of established organizations, be it small size, medium, or large organizations, but mainly medium and large size organizations. However, if you're a small size business, still stay on the line because I have something to share with you. Now, what is remote work and what does it mean for your company? It is important for us to be able to develop and to adapt to the workplace of the future. And one of the key characteristics of the workplace of the future is flexibility and freedom. To be able to create an organization that is not just concerned about the profit that it makes, but also the well-being of its employees. To be able to create an organization that is able to work effectively wherever it is that it is. So Moving forward, I would like to start by saying that remote work is not for every type of organization, but remote work can be implemented in majority of companies around the world, irrespective of their size, scale, or level of growth so far. So we basically have two types of remote work, I would say, or remote businesses. Some people will argue that there are about 4 of them, and I'm going to still share that with you. But there are basically 2 types: fully remote organizations or hybrid organizations. Now, what do we mean by fully remote organizations? Now, all of you who are perhaps on this call and those who are going to see this after, it's 2 things. Maybe you are thinking, is she talking about the ability of our company to offer a product and services remotely without the customer coming to the physical place of business? Yes, that is one part of remote work. The second part of remote work is the ability of a company to recruit, hire, and work with people, professionals from all around the world, irrespective of their geographical location. We all talk about unemployment. We talk about access to a skill gap, or bridging the skill gap, or even bridging the access to equal opportunities for all. Remote work has presented an opportunity not only for businesses, but also for young graduates, for people who are in their career, middle level, whatever level they are, to be able to have access to employment in other countries or even continents around the world, because they can be able to perform their duties from wherever they are. Now, the 2 main characteristics, I want to share a distinction. A lot of people may be thinking that remote work is the same thing as going digital. There's a difference between your company going remote and your company going digital. So the first thing I'd like to share is that remote work doesn't always mean that a company is going digital. Going digital can help you to get to an effective remote work, but it's not 100% required that your company has to be online to be able to provide a product and services before you can go remote. And I'm sure some people will be like, how am I able to provide my product and services if I'm not having a website? Very, very simple. And I'm going to share similar examples or several examples as this particular presentation go forward. A typical example: my business has no website. I've been running my business remotely for the past 3 years, and it literally has no website. It is until recently that we are now going digital to create our own application, to create our own website where our customers can go directly to the website to access our services. But remember, remote work also has to do with your ability to work from your telephone. People have your telephone number, they have your WhatsApp number, whatever means of communication, email, fax, etc., are ways in which you can be able to go remote. The second thing also is that going digital doesn't mean that you're going remote. Let me give you a very typical example. Many banks are digital. In fact, I think I can say that almost all banks, whether in Africa or around the world, they have access for you to access their service on a website, on a digital platform, on an application, or something of that nature. But majority of banks, especially in Africa, they are not remote. They still maintain physical offices where you need to go and have access to their services, or where their employees are required to come and show up at work. Now, moving forward with our presentation, why would you want to go remote? The reasons vary according to the organization. Different companies have different reasons as to why you go remote, and it's important for you to identify that for the very beginning before you make the transition. So you need to find out, what is your motivation for going remote? Why is it so important that you want to go remote? Is it based on the experiment with COVID that has helped you realize that not all of your employees need to come online? Or perhaps you have noticed some cost savings that have occurred, or just some better ways in being able to offer your product and services. The second thing you need to ask yourself is, does it align with my vision for the future, for the product and services that I'm developing, for the community that I want to build, for the type of organization that I want to build? Some people want to build an organization whereby they always have to feel like they are the bosses and they want everybody to come and say good morning to them at the office. Other people want to build an organization that empowers people and does not care about physical presence, but cares more about productivity and the value that people bring into the table. They're not concerned about seeing your face, whether you're wearing a suit or you're not wearing a suit. Other people want to build a different type of organization. Some people also, it doesn't have to do with that. It could be with the level of service that they offer, and because of that, they need to be physical. Now, remember I said there are 2 types of remote work: fully remote organizations and hybrid organizations. So you need to decide, and I'll share with you some things that you need to consider to determine what type of remote work you want to inculcate in your business. The third thing you need to ask yourself is, does it align with my values and principles? Do you have the value of flexibility and openness? Do you have the value of equal opportunity for all? Do you have the value that values more productivity than presence? And you're going to hear me say this over again, because that is one of the fundamental principles of going remote. The fourth thing you need to consider is this what I want for my products? And do I want my organization to be a virtual organization? or not? So all of these and many other questions. Don't expect to get all the answers to your work, for you transitioning into remote work from this particular session only. But this is just to give you the foundation that is most essential for you to thrive remotely. Now, the next thing that you need to consider is this. Is remote work right for your business? Ultimately, it depends on you and the culture that you want to brew. And a lot of people may be saying that, oh, remote work that cannot work for my organization because it is too big or it is too small. No size of organization. The size of your organization does not really matter. They are multi-million dollar, even billion-dollar organizations that are fully remote organizations, and they have continued to prove that the model is successful. So fully remote businesses include Zapier, Aha, AirTrack, American Express, Zoom, GitLab, Automatic, several other businesses around the world are adopting this strategies. In fact, just recently, the founder of Twitter tweeted after the COVID-19 pandemic or during the COVID-19 pandemic that for the next 6 months or 1 year, the organization is going to work remotely. Several companies are working remotely. In Ghana in particular, or in even sub-Saharan Africa, you'll find out that most startups are working remotely. And the main reason they're working remotely is due to the fact that they don't have enough capital to rent an office. But that's not just a reason why you should work remotely. It could work even if you can afford to rent an office space. So it has nothing to do with office space per se. Now, what are some of the advantages of an organization or an individual working remotely? So I tabulated this just to give you a more visual presentation. So in terms of cost savings, on the business perspective, you save money on real estate. You don't need to worry about creating multi-billion-dollar complex for you to be able to offer your service. But remember, it depends on the product and the service that you offer. That will determine if you're going to go fully remote, hybrid, or you want to stay as a physical business. And if anything should happen, your business is to close down for however long it is. So you really need to rethink about this. You save money on utility, maintenance. Where to locate your head office is no longer going to be an issue. You are not required to locate an head office if you are having a remote company, and you have the flexibility in big countries or in, I would say, more advanced countries, expensive cities like Geneva or New Zealand or even New York. You don't have to locate your company in these expensive cities. You can locate your head office in a different city because a large majority of your workforce are working remotely. For individuals, you save money on commuting. You don't need to travel to go to the workplace anymore. You don't need to wear a suit all the time or spend your money looking so good all the time because you need to go to work. On the part of mental savings, you as a manager of a remote company or a remote team, you say goodbye to micromanagement. No need to be checking in who came into the office at 10 o'clock. As long as the people are able to deliver on their work, that is what should matter. And I believe that many organizations, not only in Ghana, in Nigeria, Senegal, I've worked in 7 West African countries, and I see many human resource managers making this mistake of over-obsessing with controlling your employees. Controlling employees is not going to help your business to scale. The more that you can trust your employees, the more that they feel the confidence and the loyalty towards your business. On the part of individual, you no longer have to say, thank God it's Friday. Monday mental stress is taken off you because you have the ability to choose where you're working from. You can also develop a healthier diet and lifestyle. You can work out. You can spend more time with your children. Talents. In the path of organizations, you have the ability to recruit the best talent from anywhere it is in the world. There's no longer that geographical location limitation to whom you can employ, and you having to fly someone in for a short period of time. They can work remotely from their country and provide the services. So you save a lot. You are able to attract the best talent. You're also going to be able to find some investment opportunities that can be able to deliver superior service and product to your customers. In some markets or in many situations, you may even be able to expand the access of your services because you've gone remote. On the part of individuals, of course, you have more freedom, flexible hours. You choose where and when you want to work, among other things. Emotional well-being. For companies, you are supporting the work-life balance of your employees. On the part of employees, you have a better work-life balance. You can also be able to increase trust, loyalty, and engagement, and even just commitment of your employees simply by trusting them because they need to take that personal accountability. On the part of growth, when it comes to the organization, you can increase your employee productivity. The workforce, There's a future of work report, I believe by GitLab. I don't have the statistics here. They actually prove that in the US in particular, most companies that have migrated into online work are experiencing a higher level, unprecedented level of productivity, because your employees don't get tired. Some people have to drive 2 hours in Lagos in particular, or in Nairobi in Kenya. People are stuck in traffic for 2-3 hours before they get to work. By the time they get to work, they are tired. They can save that time and direct it towards a more productive thing. Also, you have the ability to expand your clientele base. Let me give a typical example. Many companies who have distributed teams, especially hybrid organizations and even fully remote companies, you can hire a marketing manager who doesn't have to come to your office. You can have a service in Ghana or in Sierra Leone, and you can have people working for you in South Africa, in Kenya, or in other parts of the world that you want to expand your customer base at, and those people will be physically located. I know people who work with startups who are working in Silicon Valley right here in Ghana. There are startups in Yaba, in Lagos, that are working with people who are here in Ghana, and they're expanding the reach of their services. Also, on the path of employees, it requires you to have a higher level of personal responsibility and accountability. And that, for me, I believe, is growth. Flexibility and trust yields the ability for you to have more job fulfillment. You can be able to further your education, nurture projects that gives you a sense of fulfillment apart from your full-time job. If you have any questions, you can start dropping them in the comment section below before we get to the question and answer session. So moving forward, this is just a mistake. Some of the things that we need to consider, because as much as I am a remote work evangelist, an advocate, as well as a trainer and a consultant for organizations, I must share with you also there are some cons that you need to face, and you can adequately prepare for this in order to ensure that you are able to transition to remote work more effectively. Some of the cons are communication. Some people are so used to face-to-face communication that it becomes so difficult for them to be able to communicate what they want to say to the team because they are working remotely. There's also a lack of discipline on the part of some employees who necessarily, I would say, are abusing the system or just don't have that personal sense of responsibility. There's also the issue of tracking time. How are you able to ensure that if you have remote workers at different geographical time, you're able to track the time that they are going to be available to provide the service or do the work that you've assigned them. Also, there's the issue of trust. In some markets, especially in Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, we have very similar commonalities. Even in Southern Africa, some people will not trust you because you don't have an office. I have personally experienced this so many single times, but I believe not necessarily in attracting every type of customer. I believe in attracting the right customer who sees my value more than they want to see my face. I can decide to go out of Ghana for 6 months or 7 months, and I'll still be able to provide my services to companies who recognize the need that my value is not placed to my location or my geographical location. And those are the type of clients I want to be able to work with. Staying organized, because there may be some too many tools, especially for new businesses. I'm sure that some of you have worked remotely over the past couple of weeks due to COVID, and perhaps you didn't really have the communication tools, so you had too many tools that you were working with. Work-life balance. It's important more than ever before for you to create boundaries when you're working remotely, both as an individual and as a company, because you have the propensity to work more if you're working remotely. So you need to be aware of some of these cons. Moving forward, which I know is a lot of questions that have in your mind. Can my business go remote? It really depends on the type of service you offer and the products you offer. However, I will say that I would say every business, because that is not accurate, but a majority of businesses can be able to make some of their staff be able to work remotely, irrespective of the service or product that they develop. Now, product-based businesses, whether you're offering an electronic-based business or e-product or even a physical products like shampoos, or you're perhaps even producing cars, there are elements of your business like finance, like operations, like marketing, like maybe even customer relationship management. And that doesn't necessarily have to be physically done. So examples of companies that can be able to go remote include software companies, tech companies, internet-based service providers, consultants, designers, web designers, marketers, drop shippers, people who have online stores, even if your product is physical, as long as you don't hold the stock to the product. And even if you do, you can still have a warehouse and then get the service of logistic company to ship your product directly to your customers, and they don't have to come to see the product. So this model can work for a lot of businesses, even brokerage, real estate, foreign currency, business brokerage, commodity brokerage, marketplaces, etc. So Now, this is for the small businesses. This slide, we literally created it. I started it in the last, I think, 10 minutes or 15 minutes of this, before this call. And I'm sure that some of you are here, you don't have large organizations. Perhaps you have your own small business that is a physical based business. Maybe you run a salon, or you run an automobile repair shop, or perhaps you even sell certain products, or you develop some type of, or even you provide training services. I don't want to say training services, or perhaps you are, I don't know, some physical type of service provider. Now, what are the alternative ways that you can be able to provide products and services remotely? Perhaps the primary service or products you provide cannot be rendered remotely. However, they are secondary types of services or product that you can develop that you can be able to offer them remotely. One of the first type is coaching and consulting. I coach and I consult. I coach for individuals and I consult for large organizations and high performance. Online teaching and skill sharing. Whether you are a product developer, perhaps you know how to make, I don't know, soap, or you know how to make beads, or perhaps you are, give me some examples in the chat button and I'll look at them later on. So whatever service or product you are developing, you can be able to share the skill and the art of providing or creating that service online. Now we have so many online marketplaces and educational platforms where you are encouraged to share your skills and you can monetize them. So look at perhaps creating a simple course, a webinar like we are doing right now, although this one is free, and we are happy that we are doing it for you because we want you and your organization to be able to thrive, or even as a mastermind. You can create a membership site or a community where you charge people for some type of advisory or for some type of resource that you provide to them. You can develop an e-product, provide services as a freelancer on places like Freework, Upwork, Fiverr, several other marketplaces. I've even seen some marketplaces that are Ghanaian-based marketplace and Nigerian-based marketplace where you can exchange your skill as a freelancer. So you need to think beyond, or you need to think outside the box in seeing what are the alternative services that I can be able to create as a physical business owner, or what value can I share? What skill can I share? Who can I add value to? Perhaps you can even consult for a bigger manufacturer or something of that nature. So think about when we are doing this presentation about remote work, it's not just about migrating your team to the online space or to be able to work from anywhere. It's also about diversifying your products and your service offerings in order for you to continue to thrive. I'm sure everybody on this call has heard diversify your source of income. So these are just some suggestions that can help you. We are coming towards the end of the presentation. Actually, not the end, the middle. So the third thing, or I don't know, I've lost count of the core points, but the operating mindset and principles is that first and first, office-based with a work, excusez-moi, I don't know what I've wrote here, but I know what to say off my head. So the first principle I would say is that you have to value productivity over presence. That is a fundamental principle that is required for remote work. You need to also be able to look at how can my employees, so productivity is one. Second has to do with flexibility, the type of culture that you want to operate with. The trust is an integral part of your organization and the principle that you need to operate with as a remote business. You as a business leader need to trust your employees enough to be able to allow them to work remotely. You need to also ensure, or you need to kind of have a level of trust that the right customers will patronize your product and service irrespective of whether you're offering it in a physical location. I'm trying to make sense of what is on my slide. I think I made a mistake somewhere. Office-based with a work home. Okay, so thank you very much. This is not on the operating mindset. This has to do with the different types of remote organizations. So we have, like I said earlier, fully remote companies and hybrid organizations. And under this, you can have a company that has an office base, so you still have a head office, and then you have your employees have the option to be able to work from home occasionally or full-time. Then you also have another type of organization, which is a remote team that is based in a single time zone. So for example, when you go on any of these online platforms where you can be able to find remote works like We Work Remotely, Fiverr, etc., you will find that some companies require you to be at a specific geographical location. And this is because of time zone differences, and they don't want to have people working like 10 hours ahead or 10 hours behind. So you can determine the type of remote organization you want to run. Also, you have large organizations like Google, Twitter, Amazon in particular, Zapier, Aha, Automatic, that are worldwide teams. They're able to recruit people across different time zones. And then you also have fully distributed teams with a nomadic team. And a nomadic team simply means people who are able to work and travel. For the past, I would say 2 years of my life have been nomadic. If not for coronavirus, I will not necessarily be in Ghana, but I'm grateful that I'm here because I also love the stability of having a home base so I can get a lot of work done as compared to when I'm traveling literally all the time. So there are companies that are specifically for people who want to become digital nomads. That means people who want to be able to travel the world and still be able to work or provide the service or products that they're selling online without having the restrictions. So you determine what type of organization that you want to build. Now moving forward, and I think this is towards the ending, some of the key things that you need to consider. Let me know in the chat column below if you can hear me. How to draw, okay, yes, we can hear you. Just checking, so I'm sure that everybody's on board. So some of the things that a company, whatever size that you are in, need to consider when you are thinking about or you're in the process of transitioning from a physical location, rendering your product and your service, managing your team at a physical location, and now you want to move online. These are the considerations. Communication and collaboration is king. You need to adopt a policy, a culture of communicating effectively, timely, and directly. There is no chit chat when you're managing a remote work. You need to be as direct as possible. You need to establish a communication team, a communication plan with your customers. How often do you want to communicate with your customers? What are the mediums? With your team, who is available at what hour? What are the crucial team members that are required at a meeting? Don't get everybody on a Zoom call simply because you are now working from home. Only get the people who have direct impact on the project that you're talking about. You can save people a lot of time. Assign responsibilities to a specific person, because if you assign a responsibility to the group, nobody is really going to take responsibility of ensuring that the project or the task is being executed properly. So always communicate effectively with your stakeholders. How do you intend to keep engaged with your investors, with the external environment, with the government, with your community that you are serving? It doesn't mean that because you no longer have a physical location, so you no longer have interaction with these people. It is the communication and the type of collaborative culture that you brew that is going to make or break your remote business. The second thing also is that, yeah, I've already talked about this. Now, meetings. Before any meeting, if you're running a remote business, you need to communicate the objective. Set an agenda, set a time, share the information. If there's a document that you want to discuss or a policy or a proposal, share it and ensure that everybody has access to that before the meeting. It will save you a lot of time. You also need to respect people's personal space and timing. For the fact that we're working from home doesn't mean that you as a boss have the authority to call your employee at 9 p.m. in the night or 10 p.m. in the night simply because they are working from home. It doesn't work that way. So you need to respect people that you're working with, and you need to ensure that unless there's an emergency, you just don't call for a meeting just like that out of the blue. Long meetings should be avoided unless they are like weekly briefs. That's if it is really necessary, because some of the weekly briefs, when I used to work in corporate, they were not really necessary. Banks do, performance meeting every Mondays. Some banks do every Fridays. Keep them as short as possible and have very important meetings like performance assessments, like growth strategy calls, or perhaps quarterly report, communication to be long meetings. Documents should be shared ahead of time. I've already shared that. You need to also establish a proper project management plan. And in the subsequent slide, I'm going to talk about the tools that you can use. You also need to ensure that you try as much as possible to consolidate the tools that you're using. Don't have the finance team, human resource team, the operations team using different tools. Let them use a similar tool, and you can create different level of access to information on the tools. That way people can be able to find information as at when they need them and don't need to go searching all over the place. The second thing is accountability and transparency. You as the leader, human resource manager, owner of the company, team leader, whatever, you need to have the confidence and the trust that people are going to be held accountable. And you need to also not just do that, share what is happening with the business. Sometimes you hear business leaders hiding some information that has to do with the downline. Perhaps the business is not performing properly and you need to make adjustments in salaries, or you need people to be able to double up on their taxes. Be as transparent as you are. Communicate the health of the business to the employees and let them know that the work that they are doing is not just appreciated, but is making an impact in the business. That way they can be able to have that trust and confidence in you as a person. And for anybody watching this, whether you're a team leader or whatever it is that you are in an organization, you need to take personal responsibility of ensuring that you are productive, you are respectful, and you go in accordance with the policies that have been set by your organization while you're working remote. This is not the time to say that, oh, I used to work 8 hours a day, and now because I'm working remote, I'm going to only work, 4 hours a day. Although I also sometimes say that the time that you work does not necessarily matter as long as you're able to deliver, but we need to discuss this with your managers and ensure that you're transparent and you're accountable. Now, moving to the third point. Okay, yeah, I've already talked about this, assigning responsibility. Top level management needs to ensure full transparency and keep their employees connected and remind them that they are important and they are cherished part of your business. The third thing is organizational culture. This, I would say, is even somewhat more important than communication and collaboration, because the kind of organizational culture you develop can help you attract and retain the best talent, or every single year you'll just be losing talent, you'll be losing your best managers just because your organization is toxic. And while you are working remotely or building a remote business, you need to be aware of this. So going remote doesn't mean that you need to get your employees to do more work. It doesn't mean that you need to micromanage. You also need to create a safe space where people can be able to share with you without fear or favor. You need to be non-judgmental. You need to nurture a culture of respect, integrity, and just being human and a dignified person. Don't be a terrorist manager, whereby whenever people come to work, they don't want to see your face. Or whenever you come to the office and they pretend like they are working. You can't transfer those toxicity in the workplace into the remote work space. If not, you're not going to see any improvement in your performance metrics. The fourth thing you need to consider is the mental health. Self-isolation is real. Working remotely, you need to be able to build community. You as a business leader provide what they say water cooler movement. A lot of people have chit chats during breaks and stuff like that. On your Slack channels, you can create informal discussions. You can even have nights, maybe once in a month, where employees just hump on a Zoom call and they have like a digital happy hour. Create community-like feeling. Also be more intentional about team bonding activities. There are a lot of examples you can learn from online and from other organizations that have done this, or you can contact me for more training and information. The fifth thing you need to do also is to build community and plan occasional physical meetups. For the fact that your organization is remote doesn't mean that you should not have physical meetups. So make or encourage people who are working in the same time zone to meet up together, or in the same city. Organize company retreats, not only for top level executives, for everybody in the company who has contributed. Develop that culture, because now you're saving a lot of money. In fact, millions of cedis or millions of naira or even millions of dollars in real estate costs. So transfer that to creating these experiences that will let your employees feel like an embodiment part of your organization. The sixth thing, let me just check my time to make sure that we're in time. The sixth thing is that you need to hire the right people. People who are self-motivated, people who are self-starters, high performance, people who are hungry, people who don't need you to call them a million times to send that email or to send that project report. So you need to ensure that your hiring process, your onboarding process, and your retention process within your organization is effective, and you're able to retain and hire the best talent, and not just talent, but people who are culturally fit with your organization. The right tools and infrastructure needs investment, or you need to invest in them. You need to invest in internet. If your employees don't have computers, don't expect them to use their personal computers at home to work. Give them computers. Insurance. There is now remote work insurance. Several companies are offering that. I'm not too sure of Ghana, but I'm sure that over time, Ghanaian companies will start doing that. You can subscribe to foreign-based insurance policies for your remote employees. Backup power source, where in Africa, Ghana is a little bit better because you have a stable level of electricity. But for all those in Nigeria, in Senegal, Senegal is better. Sierra Leone and Liberia, please get a power bank and any sort of power source for your employees and let that be part of the package. Communication channels, you need to determine, don't use WhatsApp unless you're a small organization under the size of 10. And even that, ensure that you always back up your files in case the group gets corrupted. Use Slack, emails, Flip. There are several tools that exist out there. Determine the collaboration tools. Is it Trello, Asana, whatever works for you? Choose a collaborative tool. You can also use Google Docs. I use that like all the time. Virtual whiteboard, so you can be able to work at the same time with your other employees. The 8, we have 10 points under this, is you need to have a continuous commitment to train and upskilling of your employees. You also need to be aware that different employees learn in different ways. So you need to provide platforms that they can be able to learn. Some people learn better visually. Some people learn better with text. So you need to provide different tools and resources, online educational platforms, depending on the industry you are in, that your employees can be able to upskill. And remember, even the remote work transition, your employees need to be trained on how they need to work effectively while they are working from home or anywhere else in the world. Policies for various elements of remote work is needed. Operations, communication, internal tax, transactions, hiring and onboarding, etc. Different elements of your business may require different policies because now you're working remotely. You need to communicate expectations effectively. You need to make sure that your employees understand their rights and their responsibility, and you also are able to fulfill your rights and responsibility towards them, and everybody is clear. Performance appraisal, how is it going to be done? What platforms, how often, etc. What are the metrics that exist? So all of these are integral considerations that you need to have as a business who is planning to go remote. Second to the last, managing sales and revenue and other income. I'm sure that most of you are like, now she's talking. Remember, all of the other elements that I have said, every aspect of your organization is important. It's not only the sales team or the finance team or the product development team that is important. All elements contribute to the success, and you need to treat all elements of your business equally important, but also, of course, you also need to have some level of priority depending on the metrics that you're using for appraising the performance. So central and automated funnels work best. It's not compulsory that you adopt that at the beginning. You need to have timelines and cutoff times. When should what document be submitted? What are the cutoff points of reconciliation of your account? If you're a financial service, provider, or perhaps you're not a financial service provider, but you have an automated sales funnel that takes sales from all over the world, you need to have cutoff time for your bank reconciliation, transaction management and central communication challenge, etc. Managing engagement with community and stakeholders. Remember, when the future of work, I always say this, it's not just about tools. It's not just about technology. It's also about ethics, culture, ethical considerations, social justice, work policies, your ability to fight against systematic, level of oppression or even gender-based violence in the workplace. So you need to be an organization of the future and act with integrity. You need to stay in touch with the community that you are serving. You need to create programs that can still impact directly the communities that you are serving, the stakeholders. You need to pay your taxes. You still need to ensure that you're abiding by the laws. You also need to be responsible towards the environment. So you have to consider all of these and develop that into your remote work strategic plan. Data security and privacy needs no explanation. Once you're working virtually, you need to create systems in which that you ensure that the level of access to information goes to the right person and it is secured in a server. Cost-benefit analysis. It is left for you and your organization to decide, am I going to go fully remote or am I going to go hybrid? What is the benefit and the cost implication of me transitioning to remote work, and if I'm going to remain in the office? What is the cost of real estate over the next 5-10 years? What is the cost of computers? What is the cost of other things that I've mentioned earlier on? And how will that benefit me overall? But remember, it's not all about cost. And in most cases, companies have reported, global companies, we're not even talking about companies that are just getting started. Global companies have reported significant decrease in cost, high level of productivity, simply because they have been able to go remote. So at this point in time, you can start sending your questions in the comment section below. And then the last thing that you need to consider when you are transitioning to remote work is that it takes time, and you need to have a plan, the remote work strategy plan. Once you're able to develop the plan, and don't develop this plan in isolation, involve your employees, get their feedback. Now the world has been forced to do the largest experiment of work from home. So people have experienced some challenges, they have experienced some benefit, talk to your employees and involve them in creating this plan. And once you have the plan, test your remote work strategy plan. Determine the trial period. Don't go remote all at once. Determine the metrics you're going to use to determine the performance, to determine the different aspects of your business that are important. The softwares and the tools that you need to use, the policies, trainings, learning needs, adaptability, how fast is who adapting, what teams need to go remote first before the other, and how does that affect your bottom line, whatever you define as a bottom line, because every organization has a different bottom line. So last but not the least, transition gradually. Over a couple of weeks or months. Some companies even take a year or two to be able to transition to fully remote. If you are going to run a hybrid organization, remember, you need different policies for remote teams and for physical teams, different communication expectation, collaboration, and all of these factors that I've mentioned earlier. You need to start with one department or two, give them a trial period, or even when I was in Germany a few years ago, I believe, one of my friends was working remotely 3 days out of 5 days in the week. And that was because he is an African and he just doesn't feel like he wants to go to work. He doesn't want to go to the office all the time, or no, he doesn't want to be working at home all the time because he feels like he needs to show up his face. So also you need to consider the opinions of your employees. If your employees are more comfortable working from home, some are more comfortable working from the office, then perhaps a hybrid organization will work better for you and your needs, because you also want to consider the well-being of other people that are working with you. You also need to split the teams, experiment and adjust based on the feedback that you get. Pay attention to your performance metrics, whatever you define that as. This is just an example. Sales, revenue, productivity, level of, project completion. What is the mental health, or even do you feel that your employees are more enthused about work than they were ever before? Or do you feel like they are lagging behind because they are extremely distracted while working from home? What are your customers saying? What are your investors saying? What is the bottom line saying? How is the community that you're working with reacting to the changes that you have made? So I hope that this gives you clarity if you're just getting started with your remote work transition, whether as a medium-sized organization or a large-sized organization, whatever that stage of growth you are in. And I hope that this gives you the confidence and the clarity that you need to be able to pivot while working remotely in Africa or anywhere in the world. So at this point in time, send in your questions in the question and answer session. I'm going to hand it over to Leslie to facilitate the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I think the time was so small for you. I will definitely host you again to share more details. I mean, to take us through the details in terms of the tools that we can use. And of course, because if you actually open our minds, if you expose us, I mean, we've thinking outside the box. So I think maybe the next section will be more of a detail in terms of sharing the tools that we can use to make sure that those of us who are working remotely, those of us who are running our business remotely, we can able to run it smoothly. So at this point, I think if we're able to touch so many things, I'm going to open up the floor. We have just a few minutes to go. As I said, we don't want to waste much time. So I'll open up. If you think you don't have any questions, you can still mute your mic. If you have any question, please just raise your hand and we'll call you. And so whilst we wait for the audience to put up their questions together, I have a question that I want to ask. So sure. Currently, I mean, for schools, for me, my big concern is schools, which they never even thought of running remote schools.
Right.
Have you ever engaged any school in helping them to go remotely, and what has been the experience so far?
Okay, personally, I have not helped any school to go remote, but I have advised 2 school owners actually in Nigeria on what they need to do. So one of the key challenge in going remote with educational programs is the bandwidth, the internet bandwidth, because it's not very reliable and it's very expensive. However, I must note that some telecom companies have given a discounted, I would say, rate to students to go to access some information on some specific educational platforms. So it's a combination, particularly for schools, I would say, of determining, okay, how can we compress the curriculum that we have this semester and to offer them in bit sizes, just the same way students come to school for 1 hour a class or 3 hours a class. What are the tools that we can use? is Zoom effective or AirMeet or GoToWebinar, or should we rather record these sessions and perhaps upload it on any of these e-marketplaces that already have established systems where you can launch your online product? So for example, like Udemy is one, Allison is another, Teachable is another. So it's about determining what platforms do we want to put our courses on? Do we want to develop our platforms? And if we want to develop our platforms, do we have access to the resources and the people who are going to manage this? Because it's not easy to develop an online educational platform that is just online. It's a lot of, cloud space and also data security issues that you need to consider. And then the third thing also is that what are the categories of students you have? There are schools that are medium class or are for people from the middle class. There are schools that are for upper class, I will say children from more privileged homes. And there are schools that are for lower class, I don't want to say lower class, but underprivileged children. So it's also about considering if they even have access to the computer or they have access to the phones that we want to offer the service, the education through that. So also, I would say that migrating online, whether it is digital or going remote, also comes up with its own inequalities. But I think those inequalities are kind of bridged with support, especially by corporate organizations and government in terms of subsidies and policies that they put in place to ensure that people have access to the device. Because you need a device, the student need a device to be able to consume whatever it is that you're offering. And then, yeah, so that's basically about it. There's some schools, actually, I learned about some schools in Nigeria that have actually used WhatsApp platform. So every teacher has his own WhatsApp platform and the student join, and then every day they send in the bit size, videos, 20, 30 minutes. A class that you could have taken for 2.5 hours, now you need to find ways to communicate in 30 minutes and then take the student question and answer on the chat. So it does come with the challenges, but it is possible. And it's also showing us that we need to diversify the way in which we render our product and services. And we also need to take care of the challenges that it brings.
Yeah, I think it's clear. There's a question before I come in. My question is, in your presentation, you made it clear that a remote business allows employees to work at their comfort zone without any physical meeting. So how can an employer measure the performance of their employees?
My question, just a moment, let me read again. In your presentation, you mentioned that the remote business allow employees to work at their comfort zone without any physical meeting. So how can an employer measure the performance? It's based on productivity. What do they normally do at the office space? So if somebody is a marketing manager, do you have a metrics of measuring so let's say they are expected to generate X amount of sales, or perhaps to onboard X amount of clients. And if they were in the workplace physically, how many clients did they use to onboard on a regular basis? Are they able to deliver on that even while they are not working from a physical location? And remember, remote work does not necessarily mean that they're always working on their computers. It also means sometimes that they are working on the field, but just that they're not required to come to the office before they can go to the field. So you need to determine what your performance metrics are. If it is an account office, for example, an accountant or a finance manager, what do they normally do at the workplace? They need to ensure maybe perhaps they reconcile the accounts on a daily basis on sales. They need to ensure that they prepare salary measures. They need to ensure that they are managing your account receivables and payables. So are they still doing that, and are they reporting at the time that you have cut off? So for example, when I used to work in the bank, I think cutoff time for certain transactions, international transaction is like 2 p.m. Sorry, interbank transaction is like 1 p.m. And this was back in like 2013 or 2014. So that's one. Second thing, cutoff time for ensuring that you close your account is around 6 p.m. in some banks, up to 7 p.m. or even 8 p.m. if it's the end of the year. So are they still able to do that? Now you have, so that's one example. Operations team, what do they typically do? Do they go inspecting locations? Now, if you don't have location and perhaps you have warehouses, are they going to be required to work with the warehouse managers? Are they reporting the inventory level at every point in time? And are they doing it on a timely basis? So you, the company, need to set the metrics of how you measure performance. And this can easily be done based on the performance that you know is normally obtained while they are working physically, and perhaps either putting a markup to it or reducing it a little bit. I don't know, you decide. And don't forget, you're not going to determine this matrix just on your own. You also need to involve different managers in the company, and perhaps in some extent the employees as well. Because remember, they're saving like 4 or 5 hours in traffic, or even 2 hours in traffic that they could have been coming from, they will have been coming to work from. So they have a higher level of, I would say, peace, even to be able to conduct their work more effectively. So you need to set that matrix.
Yeah, I think you said it all. And I think one thing I want to bounce before we sign out is, I mean, when you talk of remote work, people think that you just have to work from your home. You see, our homes are not built to, I mean, you saw a tweet from our Chelsea University lecturer who said, you hear good sound and people talking. I mean, our settlements were not built for this remote thing. People don't even have rooms. I mean, they sleep in a compound place. You don't have a space where they can work from. So what I want to encourage is that there are a lot of co-working spaces around, which I saw it in your slide.
Yeah.
You don't work from workplace doesn't mean that you can't go to co-working space, which is nearby. We have a co-working space at Mata Echo, so you can just walk in and just work from there. Meanwhile, you're not going to work, but you have access to work. You get access to internet and you work from there. So as you're working from home, doesn't mean that if your home is so conducive, you still have to be in your bedroom to work. Find a suitable place to sit, and where there are a lot of cafes around that you can sit and just on your laptop and work from there. So let's take a question before we sign out. So there's a question on just read your question. There's a question there.
Do you mean going digital has to do with how a firm delivers its goods and services, while going remote has to do with where the employees are working? No, if I'm to answer that question, going digital can go in 2 ways. In many cases, it has to do with the ability to render the service and the products online. In some few cases, it also has to do with adopting digital communication strategies in working with their employees. But when you're going remote, it means that your team, so you need to decide, in the general definition of remote work is the ability of you as an organization to have distributed teams that are located in different geographical locations or in the same city, but they have the ability to work from anywhere they are. So you can, let me give you an example. You can have a digital, a company that goes digital, like a bank or an insurance company or a real estate company, or even, or even, let's say, for example, Skills Hub Africa can develop an online learning platforms where it's able to offer its trainings, etc. But its employees are still required to come and work from the office space. However, a remote company or a remote, a remote business will not require its employees to come and work in a physical location all the time. So that's why you have to determine whether your company wants to go 100% remote or it wants to be a hybrid whereby you have office, but a large majority of your employees or a reasonable number are not required to come to the workplace. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it's clear because as you mentioned earlier, for dégoutai, a company can still work from remotely and don't even have a website. A firm can still have employees to work from home, but they don't even have a Facebook page. So if a company decides to have all like bank, you need to be. I've never seen a banker say working from home. You need to be at the workplace. So all the banks have a website, have a mobile apps, but they were still asking their employees to come to work. So COVID came in, and now they're asking their employees to work from home. So I mean,
it's about essentiality also, because not all employees need to come to the office. Look at it in any business. Not all employees need to come to the office. Forget about COVID. So why do you have to require all your employees to come to the office? It's like a rigid style of organizational management. And I believe that HR managers, in Africa in particular, and other developing worlds, even in Latin America, the same thing I saw. In Asia too, the same thing. But in developing worlds, they are more concerned about your productivity. What are you bringing to the table? You're not concerned about coming to prove yourself like you're a boss, or you have to terrorize your employees. Some companies too, when they're employing you, it's like as if they're doing you a favor. Like, we need to change the organizational culture in which we are building our businesses, not only in this continent, but in other developing countries. Employment should be a mutual level of agreement whereby the company is seeing value in you and not treating you as though we can take you off at any point in time. We need to change that organizational culture. What do you call it? We had a session a few weeks back about the future of work and ethical considerations. And you need to hear the frustration. Even some companies, for example, in Nigeria, recently we had this issue of, They had this issue of gender-based violence and rape literally happening all the time. And there were employers that never even addressed that issue in the workplace. How can you be a HR manager of the future and not even be concerned about the mental stress that your employees are going through? So this session is not just about remote work. It's about building organizations of the future that are progressive and they are flexible and they focus more on the human-centric approach of managing organizations.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I mean, we are wrapping up. Mr. Hilbert is on the line. Mr. Lawson, do you have any questions, any contribution before we wrap up? If you have any contribution, please, you can just come in before we wrap up. Yeah. Mr. Hilbert, yes.
Hello.
I think he's muted. I just unmuted him, yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, you are. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've been listening to the presentation, and I find it very interesting because now everybody is talking about working from home, and I like the way Fadila has actually outlined some of the things that we do on daily basis. But the way she has put it out there, it now looks more like a very systematic way of going about working from home. I don't have any question for her, but I would say that I really like her presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your final words, then we wrap up. It's 7 o'clock already. Your final words, then we wrap up.
Okay. Final words. Working from home. One thing also I want to share is that there's a distinction between working from home and really working remotely. What we saw with COVID mainly is forced work from home. Remote work is about flexibility. It's about freedom. It's about the ability to choose where you want to work from without having to have the limitation of geographical location. I also would like to call upon all human resource managers, in particular, team leaders, organizational owners, particularly African-based businesses. Let's develop a more human-centric approach to managing people, to managing our organizations. Let's develop a management style that is more proactive than it is reactive. Let's recognize the need to be able to provide equal opportunity to people, irrespective of their geographical location. There are companies that they will give you a condition that when you are employed, you don't even have to get pregnant for the next 3 years. Pregnancy doesn't occur by your planning, it occurs by the act of God. There are people looking for children and they have no children. Why would you have to force your employees to adopt certain types of measures that are not necessarily human-centric, frankly speaking, for what do you call it, on the path of flexibility? There are people who want to go for further education, but because of the fact that their companies are too rigid, they will keep postponing until they are like 50s or even 70s before they say they are going for further education. So remote work is really about freedom. It's about creating organizations of the future. I would like to wrap up to say that it's not for every type of organization, but it is possible in most organizations. So give it a trial and try to find out the roles in your organizations that can be automated, the roles in your organization and the teams that can be remotized, I would say, and just give it a chance. Let's develop a strategy. You'll be able to attract talent. You'll be able to give people opportunity to add value to your organization without having to have the extra cost of having to migrate them to your country or to your region or even to a big city because they need to work with you. There are people in Tamale, there are people in Bolga, there are people even in Burkina Faso that don't have access to certain types of job just because they are located in those locations. In Nigeria, there are people in northern Nigeria, in Maiduguri, where it is terrorized by Boko Haram, or even in Katsina or in Sokoto, that could be working with companies who are based in Lagos, that they are better aligned with the organizational value, but you deny yourself the ability to attract this talent because your organizational policies are just too rigid. So I'll encourage all the HR managers, the people who are also looking to start their own businesses, try to create organizations that are human-centric, that are progressive, and they're really futuristic, and they really look at the holistic well-being of not just profit, but also ethics and other considerations. So thank you so much, Emmanuel, for putting this together. I would like to congratulate you and your entire team. And yeah, I hope that this gives some level of clarity to those who are on the call and those who will watch this afterwards as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And this video will be ready right after the call, so you can just watch it on YouTube. And if you're also part of our WhatsApp group, you will share there and get access to it. Thank you so much. And now you can on your microphone and let's say bye-bye before we hang out. So bye-bye, everyone, and good night. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Ciao.